Hey Oakham students, I'm Ben Asman. Today we're going to be making one of the very first synthetic pharmaceuticals available on the market, acetyl salicylic acid, better known as aspirin. Let's get to it. Synthesis of aspirin. This is essentially an acid-catalyzed esterification. Now, esterifications, or the creation of an ester group, can either be done in acidic or basic solutions. Make sure if you look up the mechanism that you get the correct one. Though I will show you the beginning of it. One of the carbonyl oxygens on the acidic anhydride will pick up a hydrogen. This activates it by making it a better electrophile. The carbonyl carbon now can be attacked by the alcohol group. We have two OH groups on our salicylic acid. However, the acid group is too resonance stabilized and therefore is not a good nucleophile and will not attack. But the alcohol group is a good nucleophile and it can attack. Oxygen attacks carbon, opens up the carbonyl. The carbonyl can then close, kicking out the second carbonyl, leaving us with an acetate group, which once partnered will be acetic acid. And of course, our product, acetyl salicylic acid. Okay, so I'm going to use a 250 ml beaker. It's not really required that you use this exact one, but it will make your life easier because you won't have to remeasure this. I'm going to add to that 125 mils of water, give or take. This will make your life easier later. And then we don't want to forget a boiling chip in there so that it does not overboil. Turn on the heat. But not strictly required. I do recommend having a thermometer in the water. I will also use a rubber thermometer adapter to hold that in place. And we will place this right like this and adjust it so that it is in the solution. Our goal is to be somewhere between 90 and 100. Okay, now I'm going to weigh this out straight into my round bottom to make my life easier. However, this of course won't stand, so we're going to use a weigh cup as a stand. Put that there, zero that out. Now we're going to take our salicylic acid. That is close enough for me. Okay, I'm going to set up in advance my water-cooled reflex condenser. Remember, we want in from the bottom, out through the top. Some latex tubing. Lovely. And so, in from the bottom means I take the bottom piece here, connect it back there. And I'm going to take the top piece here, put it in there, and now turn this on to make sure it's working. Lovely, and no leaks. Okay, while I'm prepping this, I will have this clamped here, make my life easier, but we will switch that later. But for right now, there's our salicylic acid. We're going to add a stir bar and acidic anhydride. Now, acidic anhydride smells pretty bad because in the presence of water, it decomposes to acetic acid, so in other words, vinegar. And we're going to add that in right here, as well as our catalyst. This is concentrated sulfuric acid. We only need a few drops of this. Lovely. Cap that here. Now we're going to grab a K-clip. Has a narrow side and a wide side, and so it's going to fit over here. So we're going to switch this now so this will be clamped over here, and our K-clip will go there. Please make sure that your K-clip isn't broken. It goes like this. You always want to test this by pulling on it a bit, see if it actually holds it. This one does. And so now let's lift it and put it into our flask because we're at the right temperature. Now I'm going to move this a bit and lower it into solution. Get that thing stirring. Now we time-lapse the 20 minutes of the reaction. If you look closely, you can see as it subtly changes color. You can also see that some of the water is boiling off. If it gets below half, you probably want to add some more, ideally hot water. Okay, our 20 minutes are up. We'll pull this out. And put that to the side, let it cool. But as much as possible, I want to keep stirring this. And I'll just leave an air gap here until it cools. I'm going to leave the water on in case something evaporates so it still condenses. While this is going, you put some water on ice. So we'll make ourselves a quick ice bath here. A little ice, a little water. Now, we don't actually want to use this water, so we're going to get some DI water and then stick that in there to chill for a few minutes. Okay, so this has cooled down. It's basically room temperature. I can now take my ice water here, and while it's still stirring, I can add that cautiously to the top. Lovely, they're fully integrated. Okay, now we can take this away. Now, if you have a 50 ml, this is big enough, you can add the 20 mils of DI water straight to that. However, I'm gonna do it in a beaker because I have a small flask here. Also, it becomes easier to deal with the recrystallization. Also, I'm gonna take my spatula here, just prevent the stir bar from coming out. And we're going to scratch here the bottom to make sure that it can crystallize, has something to start off of. We will take this, add it to our ice bath, and let that chill. While we're waiting for that, we want to set up a clamp nice and low. We can get a filter flask, this with a spout of course, and we're going to clamp that in place so that's touching the hood and held in place. We're going to get a Hickman, that's this one, that's the two-piece plastic one. Make sure that the stopcock is not so old that it doesn't fit tightly or that air can get through. You're also going to need some rubber tubing. We're going to connect it down here and at the vacuum. Now lastly, you're going to need some filter paper. They come in a variety of different sizes. You want to find the size that fits in perfectly to your flask, no bending, and it covers all of those little holes. Now that it's chilled for about 20 minutes, you can see that there's a lot of solids that have accumulated on the bottom. Swirl into suspension, and then pour it all in. Water always takes a little bit longer to filter. While that's happening, we can take this and some additional cold DI water, and we can try and get as much of this off the walls as we can. Now this is still quite wet, so we gotta let this dry in air for a little bit and then leave it until next week. Now next week, you're also going to run an iron trichloride test. We're going to add a little bit of our salicylic acid to one flask, a little bit of our freshly made aspirin to another, 5 ml of water, stir them around, and a few drops of iron trichloride. If it's purple, you have an alcohol. If it's reddish or orange, you don't. Make sure one of them only gets water and iron trichloride as a control. Up to 10 minutes, it should be light and fluffy. Take it and put it in your drawer. That's it. You're done.